of rock and roll.
Well, hello and welcome to the Daily Atheist Morning Show. I am your host, the amazing Super Chris. Thank you for joining me today. We've got a special guest. Dr. Kipp is joining us. He's going to talk about all kinds of smart people stuff. And of course, Ryan is here. The lovely and beautiful Ryan is here. She's going to be dropping some knowledge on us as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be back in just a minute and I'll bring out Dr. Kipp. Let's do this one here. Do you have an atheist friend or family member who's a good person and you don't want to see them end up in hell? But now they're on their deathbed. Time is running out. They've been there for you and now you want to be there for them. But how can you save them from your all-loving, forgiving God and its eternal lake of fire? Well, fear not, my wayward child. Introducing Father Flanagan's line of atheist deathbed conversion Bibles. No more worries of loved ones meeting their resolution without absolution. Now you too can force your faith on the weak and helpless in their final moments. Father Flanagan's line of atheist deathbed conversion Bibles are designed specifically for the weak and infirmed. Extra large type for failing eyes, seeing their last. Deluxe editions come complete with a post-mortem Mother Teresa would have approved baptismal kit. Also available in heathen and heretic versions. Father Flanagan's line of atheist deathbed conversion Bibles. Coming to a Walmart near you.
Yeah.
All right, we are back, and I'm not even going to waste any time. Let me bring up Dr. Kipp and Ryan. Good morning. I'll start with Dr. Kipp. You are here. You are thusly official. You are upon the screen. Good morning, Dr. Kipp. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent.
I'm thrilled.
She's been just dying to see you here. It's just fantastic. Look at that.
That's sweet. That's very sweet.
I know. She's got your book. She's been like horn dogging on your book all week. I don't know if you've seen that or not.
I saw her making out with it a little bit the other day.
Yes.
It's an attractive book.
I'm so happy to hear you say that because not everyone thinks so. I had a number of cover concepts that I was looking at, and I distributed it to people, friends that whose opinions I trust, and one or two of them were like, not that one.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
But it was funny. It elicited some very strong reactions because in the end it was either people, and that was the one most people really liked. There were just a couple who were like really hated it. I just
Well, come on. I love it because you basically got Asher all up on it. You got more Asher on the book than there is Yahweh.
That's right.
That's awesome.
So I did not design the cover. That was Sacred Cow Diner. I don't even know. I've got his actual name in here.
Okay.
Yes, Robert Williams. So
wow.
But he also excuse me. Did the design for the Metal Moses t-shirt, and sometimes I've used it's like an old Eastern Orthodox style picture. He did them for all. I used to do this Sunday morning show called excuse me, the Diablo Critics with some scholar friends of mine, and he made one of these for each of us. These sort of Eastern Orthodox church style pictures cartoony pictures of each of us. I'm holding a piece of the temple scroll. It's pretty cool. But yeah, so he did the cover art.
Awesome.
You have a lot of great people in your corner. Say again?
Would you put it up for us again, Ryan? I'll make you biggie on the screen.
Make it big.
The link to the book is in the chat below or in the description below. And I actually, when I saw it, I thought it was kind of cool the way it's all scratched out like that.
See, I thought so too. Yeah. That's exactly like when I saw the first concept. I was like, that just captures the essence of the book. Really, yes. I think so. Well,
if it pulled controversy from the other people who didn't particularly care for it, then it scored there too. It got their attention to be true, if nothing else.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
I need to say I just need to say hi to our chat real quick and say hello to everybody. They're all here. They're excited about seeing Dr. Kipp and, of course, Ryan. They're Ryan fans. But I see a new person in the chat that I don't recognize. It's Archival Bob. Good morning, Archival Bob.
He's one of mine.
Follow. Oh, he's one of yours.
Yeah.
You're taking credit for that one. Gotcha. Captive Desk is here. Gary Priestley, Adrian Belgrave, a Christian, one of the few Christians that hangs out in our chat. Kelly is here, and Dan's backcountry. Dan, I don't remember seeing you before. Maybe you've been here. Maybe you're a Dr. Kipp fan. Nice to have you all. I thought I'd take a moment. Normally, that's part of my shtick is to say all the things to the people, but usually when we have guests, that's about the only opportunity I really get. From now on, we'll get to, I'll try to keep up with it, but we'll have so much going on. All right, real quick, I want to ask you, Dr. Kipp, if you don't mind, do you want to give us a brief idea of who you are? Introduce yourself for our people, because a lot of us don't know who you are.
Sure.
You're just a pretty face.
No. So I'm Kipp Davis. I'm a biblical scholar and a specialist in early Judaism and the Dead Sea Scrolls. I did a lot of work. I don't teach in the academy anymore, and it's been, I think, since just before COVID. But I did a lot of work when I was last in the academy on modern forgeries of Dead Sea Scrolls fragments that were being trafficked in private antiquities markets. And it turns out most of them were being purchased by like evangelical institutions and very, very wealthy
Really?
evangelical Christian businessmen, which is interesting. So people often recognize me from that work. It was featured in a lot of news outlets. They've made a couple of documentaries about it. So, and then I do stuff on YouTube. I am passionate about the Bible. I fucking love it. So, and I'm passionate about critical biblical scholarship. And as a result of that, I end up correcting a whole ton of misinformation about the Bible. Almost all of it comes from Christian apologists, but not all of it. There's a bunch of nonsense that gets propagated by adherents and enemies to religion alike.
Really?
There's a big problem with not being able to contextualize the writing and understanding it from the perspective of the writer and those who would read it. And I love the way that you tackle it. I think you do it with class, with obviously you do. I mean, yeah. Are you a smart ass sometimes and handing people their asses to them? Absolutely. I love that. But I still think that the way that you attack it is something to be commended, and obviously something that we need, especially since we see so much. I feel like it's gotten worse anyway.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the apologists. I mean, I don't know if you can contest to that or not, but since I'm a newbie to the whole scene.
Yeah, I've been actively in this space for around 4 or 5 years. So maybe I'm relatively new to it too. I was lurking, for when I did my last postdoc in Norway, and I used to lurk in secular spaces on YouTube all the time back when I was doing that. That's what my first exposure to like Dr. Joshua Bowen happened while I was still over there. But I think in many respects there's more now, right? I think maybe that's it. Is just it's a growth industry.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of that is because so much of this is a grift. People.
Yeah. And I have a video on that, by the way. Christianity is a scam, I think, or why religion, top 10 reasons why it's all a scam. Anyway, You might have seen it.
I
Carry on.
might have. I've seen a number of your videos. But I don't think, like, I think it's sort of this Christian apologetics space that and this is what I'm mostly critical of, in large part because it's operating on the premise that this is an evangelistic effort, that this is about, you know, reaching people for the kingdom, for helping people, you know, to come to Jesus. This was my internal critique as well. Like when I was a confessing Christian for most of my adult life, like almost all the way entirely through my PhD training, in the first number of years when I taught, and in my first postdoc, at least, I was still a confessing Christian, and this was always my critique while still in the church, teaching in a Christian school for a number of years, was that apologetics is very ghetto. Like it is, it's got this mask on, like we're doing this, we're out there to reach people. This is an outreach ministry. I think this is a big part of generating ongoing support internally from the church for this. But then when you get to it, it's all just about, I've said this before, it's all about making anxious evangelicals feel better about holding on to some of the dumb ideas that they continue to.
Interesting.
Dumb is a very nice way to put it.
Very generous. I'm gonna actually, Ryan is quite the Dr. Kipp fan, not that I am not. I'm gonna pull myself down and actually run the show and chat with the people and stuff, and let Ryan ask you some questions. She's got questions.
Oh, I have a bunch of questions.
She does. So I am here. If you guys need me, I'll be listening. Of course, I'm just going to be running the show, doing the thing, probably touching myself. You know how I am. So I'll be here. I mean, look at Dr. Kipp. He's on our show. You got to.
Exactly. Because Dr. Kipp is here, you're just excited.
Of course.
We get coffee breaks here, though, don't we?
Yes, we do.
That's awesome. So, you know, that's great. More shows to do coffee breaks.
Yeah, I tell you what. Anytime you're ready, I do them at the bottom and top of the hour. Every half hour, I do one. Let me know. Otherwise, we'll just go soon. If you get ready early, let me know and we'll run one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good. Cool.
Right, I'll be here. You guys get in, girl.
Oh, wow. He just popped right off there. He's gone.
He said adios. Well, you're in good hands, Dr. Kipp, because I adore you. I have to say I've lurked and skirked and skulked around on a lot of your content. I've probably had a lot of your DSS stuff on replay at times when I've been doing research. Yeah, because it's easier sometimes to listen to you instead of me trying to read it and decipher.
I'm just gonna hide and continue to blush here behind my coffee cup.
Hey, please blush all you will. Okay, so I do have several questions. Yeah. Now, some of them might be a little bit far out there. I'm going to start with some basics to warm you up, and then we'll get into like the Asherah stuff that, of course, I have to ask. So, Dr. Kipp, what is the most remarkable find, in your opinion, in the Dead Sea Scrolls?
So, I mean, there was a lot of them, right? So, the Dead Sea Scrolls, there's like 1,000 manuscripts. Close to, probably. We're not sure because they're all super fragmentary. And then I think too, just in terms of what the texts represent, how they've helped scholars to understand, to really open this window on this critical period of time between like the 3rd century BCE and the 1st century CE. So like those are all discoveries. But really, and I think it's probably the most surprising one, has to be the Copper Scroll. It's sort of a remarkable artifact. Like I think this is one of the most, oftentimes when people hear this, in fact, I've been on shows before. I was on a show once where one of the hosts was like, okay, before we start talking about the real shit, we like to, you know, debunk some of the crazy nonsense that appears on the History Channel. And
Oh God, yeah.
I heard that somebody suggested there's actually a Dead Sea Scroll written on copper. That's silly. No, like that's fucking. I can say that here, right?
Amazing.
Can I say that? Can I
Yes, you
say it?
can.
Okay. Oh, good. It's too early for the kids to be up, right? That's
They're not here.
yeah.
They want nothing to
Okay.
do with us old folks.
No. So it's yeah. No, this is a real thing. The Copper Scroll is 3 meters long. That's 10 feet for y'all Americans.
Which is big.
Yeah, and
That's incredible.
it's beaten copper into like thin, heavy tinfoil sheets, basically. And if you know how a scroll works, individual sheets of parchment are prepared, then ruled, then written on, then stitched together. These are like sheets of copper, same thing. You know, prepared, ruled, and then they like wired them together. It's crazy.
Okay.
Like it's just it's nuts. And then the contents of the Copper Scroll are basically an inventory of what appear to be temple treasures and riches, but stashed in various locations, you know, away from the temple. So, like for many years, first of all, it took some time just to open the Copper Scroll because, you know, it's rolled up sheets of copper that have been sitting in the desert for 2,000 years.
Right.
Very brittle. You know,
Delicate.
very delicate. So, in the 1960s, was it 1950, 57, 58, it was taken to the University of Manchester, my alma mater, and they developed with the Technical Institute there a saw that basically very carefully cut through the pieces to make strips so that they could just lay them out and read them. And then from that point on, scholars debated, like, what the hell is this?
Right.
Is this real? Is this a joke? Like, was
Mhm.
somebody is this a fantasy? And I think most scholars have landed, and this is very intriguing to me. I think most scholars have landed on the idea that the Copper Scroll is real in terms of antiquity. Like, this wasn't somebody with just too much time on their hands fucking around.
Want to pound out some copper for fun.
Yeah, right? Like, sure, why not? Hell,
Go
that was
crazy.
expensive to make this in the first place.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah.
Like, this is, you have to be really invested into this to do it. And then so most scholars look at that and go, no, this is probably legitimate, which means that this is probably actually an inventory from the temple of Herod's temple in Jerusalem.
Oh, cool.
As they were, you know, preparing for the oncoming Roman siege that, you know, people could see on the horizon from some months out. You know, they were frantically trying to get ready for that, and this was part of that. Now, the other intriguing question that this raises is, what on earth is it doing out in the Judean desert? Somebody ran and stashed it. Little bit of just very brief sort of geography about the Dead Sea Scrolls. They're commonly, there's 11 caves that are located within about a 1.5 kilometer radius of this site called Qumran, where scholars believe that the writers and the collectors of the Dead Sea Scrolls lived and they stashed their stuff in these caves in the area as the Romans were coming down from Jerusalem through the corridor of the Dead Sea to get to Masada, where the last of the Jewish renegades were hiding out, and they sacked Qumran, right? So the cave, this copper scroll, has commonly been associated with the site Qumran, but it's actually like the farthest cave away from the site, Cave 3, where it was discovered.
Okay.
And part of me thinks maybe we've got this wrong. Maybe this actually has nothing to do with these people. And this is the scrolls that were found in this cave, including the copper scroll, was, priests running away from the temple to get away from the Romans, right? So, yeah, sorry, I talk a lot. But...
No, not at all. Because I think all of us kind of wonder this mystery. If you haven't seen like the caves and what it looks like some of them are kind of like steep drops.
Yeah.
Do we even know how they were able to get inside? I'm guessing, were these natural forming caves?
There's two.
Okay.
Yeah, there's two kinds, right? And some of these, and this is the thing too, not of the 11 caves, they're not all the same. A bunch of these are natural caves that, and I think most of the natural caves are probably ones where people were stashing stuff to get away. Two of the caves, which housed a lot of manuscripts, Caves 1 and Cave 11, might have been something like an ancient Geniza. A Geniza is a Jewish, in Judaism, when a manuscript wears out, it's too sacred to just toss.
Right. Okay.
So for
do something with it.
Centuries, what Jewish people have been doing is they have been reverently retiring them, burying them essentially in repositories. So I think a couple of these caves, Caves 1 and Cave 11, might be something like that. That's where our best preserved manuscripts came from. Cave 1 is where the Great Isaiah Scroll was found, the War Scroll, the Habakkuk commentary, these things, and they were wrapped up in linen and stored in jars, right? So, you've got those. You've got some of these other natural caves where I think some scrolls were probably more haphazardly tossed by people who were running away. But then you've got something like Cave 4, which is a man-made cave. Literally a stone's throw away, like you can throw a rock and hit it from the site. And it is where most of the manuscripts were discovered. Tens of thousands of fragments coming from probably scholars have reconstructed 558 individual scrolls from these tens of thousands of fragments. But the thought here is that this was kind of like their storage area for they're the ones who probably didn't dig it out. There's probably a cave there, but they hewed it out, made it more usable, right? One of the things that we also discovered in there are the remains of pieces of wood that look like they could have functioned for shelving, and divots.
Are you sure it wasn't part of Jesus' cross?
I mean, that theory is out there.
No, tell me that's not true.
It's the internet, Ryan. I get it. I have come to discover that if you can think it, somebody's done this before you. And
yes, they will come up with devise some kind of plan of how to fit their narrative into these old stories, even though Jesus wasn't around. It's all about him.
That's right.
It's all pointing to his direction. So in these caves, Dr. Kipp, okay, so you've mentioned there's copper. What all kind of materials were found in there? Because I imagine, as you said, the arid temperature, how in the world were they able to survive? Thank goodness they did. But I'm guessing like parchment, leather, like what all was there that they found so far?
Okay, so yes, they survived because caves are dark, and along the shores of the Dead Sea, they're pretty dry. So, and now that we've discovered all these Dead Sea Scrolls, it's been going on 80 years now. In that 80-year period of time, they've been deteriorating alarmingly rapidly,
Oh,
because the things that the ancient manuscripts really don't like are light and humidity.
uh-oh.
Yeah. So, and it's taken time for conservators to. I mean, a lot of the technology for and the know-how for just looking after ancient manuscripts for handling antiquities, a lot of that know-how has been developed and cut on the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Did you
Wow.
know? Did you know that
Amazing.
some of the first carbon-14 tests were performed on the Dead Sea Scrolls?
You know what? I do have to say I knew that
Nice.
because of course, the Jehovah's Witnesses wanted to use that as some kind of like
Wow.
proponent, because they use the Dead Sea Scrolls to basically say,
Okay.
oh, look, it's all the same. Nothing's
Yeah,
changed. It
yeah.
backed it all up. Oh my goodness. Without realizing that there's a lot of differences if you compared some of these scrolls to
Yeah.
what the Bible says.
So yeah, but this is like new technology, right? Carbon-14 dating before they were using it to in biology and other fields of science. They were dating. They were trying to assess ages for the Dead Sea Scrolls. So mostly parchments, which is a form, like it's leather that's been specially prepared, and then papyrus. There's about I think I actually counted them once, but there's roughly 17% of the entire collection was written on papyrus. Papyrus is a plant that grows in Egypt. There's some thought that there might have been papyrus actually growing in some places in the Judean desert as well. And so there were a number of manuscripts written on papyrus. When I look at this stuff, the tendency is to think that parchment lasts longer. It's more durable. It's also more expensive and difficult to prepare and make. You have to kill animals to do it, right?
Right.
So it was a higher grade medium than papyrus. That helps us to evaluate the types of things that people were writing down on the media that they had. Parchment scrolls were probably more prestige objects than papyrus scrolls.
Okay.
Raises some interesting questions when you factor in the types of texts that were recorded on papyrus versus parchment. Were some of these scrolls, these papyrus scrolls, were these individual copies? Like somebody, had a small little thing rolled up that they kept with them, that they would recite, or that they, that they would use in other areas of life, as opposed to some of these larger, more impressive parchment manuscripts for communal use. So that's most of the extent of it. Some of the other things that were discovered in the caves at Qumran are ostraca. These are potsherds, broken pieces of pottery, which were for day-to-day use for documentation. People would write letters on them, contracts, receipts, lists, these sorts of things, right? So there was a bunch of those found there as well.
Okay, so on the ostraca, so you're saying stuff was actually written on them as well?
Oh my God.
Okay, so not only are these containers meant to preserve, but they also use them to write on.
And we have like tens and tens and tens of thousands of ostraca from the area, because this is how people did it. Pottery was ubiquitous; it was everywhere, right? And when pottery broke, because ancient people were phenomenally resourceful recyclers. That's what you used. You used broken pieces of pottery for your day-to-day writing. So this is all over the place. And yes, of course. So, we found some of these in the Dead Sea Scrolls as well.
Are y'all ready for a break? A little bit of a coffee break. I'm going to run us a little. I think we'll go with our. Let's do our post-mortem baptismal kit commercial. We'll be back in about 3 minutes, folks.
I like that one. All right.
Do you have a loved one who's on their deathbed, but they've yet to give themselves up to the Lord?
Are you sure you don't want to come to Jesus?
No.
This is your final chance.
No. Worried they're headed to the fiery pits of hell.
Your very last chance.
No. I've been wicked and sinful. I deserve to burn in the hot place.
As you wish. Farewell, my heathen husband.
Farewell, my... Well, fear not, my wayward child. Introducing Father Flanagan's line of post-mortem baptismal kits. No more worries about being miserable alone forever. Be a good Christian and share that eternal pain and suffering with the ones you love. I'm in hell. Not as hot as I thought it'd be. Kind of feels like Houston, minus the humidity. Hello. My favorite drink crafted to perfection. Ooh, and some dank ass weed.
I can't bear to be down on my face chanting, holy, holy, holy is the Lord, every day, all day, for all eternity, by myself.
Wow, is that George Carlin? And Alan Turing, look at that. Carl say, oh, I am so honored. You've been my hero since I was a kid. Neil deGrasse Tyson, what are you doing here? Oh, I get it. I get it. Schrodinger's heathen. Very cute, you. Very cute. That's fantastic. Oh, what is that? What is? It's holy water. Oh, it burns. No, this isn't where I want to be. Pabst Blue Ribbon and a Marlboro? No! Father Flanagan's post-mortem baptismal kit. Dead kid tested, Mother Teresa approved. Is that the Pope and John Paul? Jim Jones and Jimmy Swaggart, huh? I can see that coming. Neil deGrasse, what are you doing? Holy, holy, holy is the Lord. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord.
Thanks, Father Flanagan.
Damn them to an eternity in heaven for only $59.99. They wouldn't appreciate it, but you'll feel better, and that's the point, isn't it? Get yours now. Your heathen loved one's time is running out. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord. This is some bullshit. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord. By the power of Ryan. All right, guys, we are back. I'm going to turn it back over to Ryan and Dr. Kipp, and they are doing a fantastic job. He's telling fantastic stories. All right, guys, get after it.
Yes, he is. Well, we got a question from the audience, so let me throw that in there quickly before I forget. This is from Big Zebra. Yes, I say zebra. Why not say zebra instead of zebra?
Nice. I like that.
Okay, so for Dr. Kipp, I know that Jews require ritual slaughter for animals, but is there an extra ritual requirement for the preparation of leather for holy writings?
That's an interesting question. So I don't, I actually don't know. Now, it's not so, just to explain, almost all of our information about more, so Judaism, backing up a bit here, Judaism was kind of in this developmental stages at the time of Roman Palestine, and our sources of information for that are like the scrolls. The New Testament, believe it or not, is still one of our useful sources for early Judaism, and then a handful of other writings like Ben Sira, Philo, Josephus, and then a bunch of other pieces of literature. I don't think this is ever directly addressed there. And then there are probably writing or preparation standards that appear in the much later rabbinic literature, which comes from maybe as early as the mid-2nd century CE, but a lot of it, like the Jerusalem Talmud, the Talmud Yerushalmi, was written in the late 5th century. The Babylonian Talmud was written in the 6th century, and that's later than my area of focus. So within the scrolls themselves, within the early Jewish literature itself that we have, we don't, there's no clear information about that, but it's a good question.
It is.
And I'll say one more thing about this because I think it's funny. When a few years back, one of my former teachers, actually from grad school, came out and started making a lot of noise about how all the Dead Sea Scrolls forgeries that I had been talking about for a number of years, they were all actually authentic. And he came up with this hilarious theory that the reason one of the reasons that keyed us in on why these are fakes is because the condition of the material at the point in time at which the ink was actually applied to them, when someone was actually writing on them, they were already dried out and pretty badly deteriorated. So he's like, oh yeah, the reason they did that, purity, is all a purity thing. So you couldn't just use like you couldn't just use fresh parchment. You had to put it away. And you had to age it. Yes, aged parchment.
Like cheese and wine. It gets better with age, don't you know?
Yeah, nobody bought that.
Okay. Well, it's a great question. I'm surprised there isn't an answer to that, but I'm glad they asked it. Oh, I have another one this is from Adrian Belgrave, and I'm assuming that you're going to understand this question.
Okay.
He says, I want to know about the kingdom books that are excluded from the Hebrew Bible and the Septuagint, if you can. Do you know about kingdom books?
I don't.
Yeah, that I wasn't sure what he meant, so I asked for more context.
If you can, if you could provide.
He said the books are in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Just want his opinion on them. I guess some books that were excluded.
I don't know them by that name. Certainly. So if that's sometimes is some of the English translations will do this where they'll attach titles to the scrolls. Everybody had to do this because the manuscripts themselves, almost none of them have titles on them that survived.
Right.
We have a few though, which is kind of cool. Like for example, we have a manuscript of the Book of Genesis, and if you flip it over, like on the back side in big letters, it says Bereshit, which means that's the first word of the Bible, the first word of the Book of Genesis. That's what Jewish people call
the creation word.
Genesis. Yeah, it's the one that translates to "in the beginning," but is probably more appropriately translated "when beginning." It's a little difficult because then the verb follows, but the so-called community rule is called the Serach HaYachad, which means literally rule of the community. And the reason we know that is because we have a manuscript where on the back it says Serach HaYachad. It's pretty cool. So
Interesting.
but I don't know what
A lot of
kingdom.
them don't have titles or names or anything like
No,
that.
yeah, none of them. And so, I mean, scholars have invented titles for
Right.
all of them just to kind of keep track of them. And the titles can be annoying because sometimes they're
Misleading.
misleading, and then they
Right.
change. And then a scholar will come along and do a study and go, well, I really don't. I've done this when I published the Apocryphon of Jeremiah manuscripts. One of them, I said, I don't like. It's not part of the Apocryphon of Jeremiah. It's something else, and it used to be called Pseudo Moses, and I don't like that title either. So I called it. What did I call? I called it the second. I called it the Second Temple Apocalypse Redux, which is also probably a terrible title, but so don't have kingdoms books, and wrong. I meant okay now yeah, I think I understand. I wondered if that's what you were talking about. So kingdoms in the Septuagint are just the names that the Greek names that were attached to 1st and 2nd Samuel and 1st and 2nd Kings is
Oh,
1st
okay.
through 4th kingdoms. So first Sam, and these were probably, yeah. So and the 1st and 2nd is a bit of an artificial distinction. The reason they're divided like that, 1st and 2nd Kings, Samuel, Chronicles, is because scrolls were limited in terms of how much material you could practically write on them. The Great Isaiah Scroll, 1Q Isaiah A, measures 29 feet. It's a big one. Yeah. There's actually a copy of the Book of the Dead in Egypt that is close to 100 feet, I think, if I remember correctly. But within, in the period and in the place where I'm dealing with, most of the scrolls were, they didn't get much bigger than that. The Temple Scroll is a little bit bigger than that. We're not sure how big it was because we're missing the beginning. But it was bigger, probably not by a substantial deal, but there's limits, and as a result, in a big work like Kings or like Samuel, you have to divide it between manuscripts, scrolls, books. So that's where that artificial distinction came, and we have copies of 1st Samuel in the Dead Sea Scrolls. We have a couple of scraps from, I think, both 1st and 2nd Kings, also in the Dead Sea Scrolls. 1st Samuel seems to have been pretty popular. So, like the Book of Samuel seems to have been relatively popular. Kings less so, interestingly. So, yeah, so they're there. And I'll say this: there are copies of text from virtually every single book in the Hebrew Bible, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, except for the Book of Esther. Also, the Book of Nehemiah, although scholars will say was probably there because the long-standing belief is that at this time, within Judaism for a long period of time, Ezra and Nehemiah were always collected together. They were treated like one book. So we have some scraps from Ezra in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Most scholars think, yeah, that's probably Nehemiah as well, even though nothing survives from it.
There's a lot of, I'm assuming that when it comes to the books that you just mentioned, was it Samuel, Chronicles, Kings? Is that what you just? I know that those were some of the first books that I read. I'm just speaking specifically about like what's contained in the Bible. I realized how different the perspectives were of the stories that were being told. And that kind of blew my mind. I think one of the first ones that really shook me was the difference between the survey being taken with David, and one was, Yahweh was incited to anger, and the other one was Satan.
The Satan. Yeah.
Yeah, Ha-Satan. And that really shook me because I think that was the first time I saw an actual like evidence of stories not being concise.
Yeah.
Is there anything in particular about the Dead Sea Scrolls, like the discovery, that you have found has been the most misunderstood?
So
Because
one
as I said, like with Jehovah's Witnesses, they say, "Oh, we found the Dead Sea Scrolls, so it's all true now," and it all says the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, so you've watched, you're familiar with the video series that I am making.
I've watched a good bit of them, yes.
There's like I had to pause, but I will get back to it now that the book is done. So so you would know, one of the things that, and I talk about this a fair bit too, because within, like, even just within the Dead Sea Scrolls, I have sort of an area where I spend most of my time. I've spent a lot of time with so-called biblical manuscripts, copies of Hebrew Bible in the Dead Sea Scrolls, working on the textual criticism of the Hebrew Bible on the basis of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I spent a lot of time working on scribal practices and manuscript construction and, you know, those sorts of things. So one of the things that is frustratingly misunderstood is this question of the Bible. So in the early, when these manuscripts were first discovered, there were so many of them, and when scholars started working on them, they started parting this material out, just, you know, trying to organize it, trying to figure out what we've got. So this is how they did it. They just started from what they knew. At the outset, we know the books of the Hebrew Bible. We have text from that. We have some other early Jewish texts that we can identify in these manuscripts, things like First Enoch and Jubilees, Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, stuff like that. But then there's a whole bunch of stuff that nobody has ever seen before. Things like the Temple Scroll, things like the Community Rule or the War Scroll, or you know, a book called Instruction, which was enormously popular. Stuff like this. So the easiest way to do this in terms of cataloging the material was to go, this is biblical, these are biblical scrolls, and then all the rest is non-biblical scrolls, right?
Okay.
So this is an artificial distinction, right? Because it's presuming at the outset that they understood the text in terms of these categories as Bible versus not Bible.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that I'm continuously frustrated by, is how much this affects our way of thinking, scholars' way of thinking through the material. How do we know? How do we understand? How do we think through the way they thought about this important question of, because there's no Bible at this point in time.
Right. Right. Because this is these writings are from what, the 3rd, 2nd century BCE.
Yep. Through to the 1st century. Yeah.
Right. But it wasn't until, what is it, the 2nd-ish where the Septuagint starts to be compiled, somewhere around there?
So what we're told is that in the 90s, at a council in Jamnia, was when the rabbis first laid down the contents of the Hebrew Bible. Josephus talks about there being 22 books of sacred scripture, although all scholars pretty much believe this is an idealized number. You know, he doesn't actually go out and list them. In Ben Sira, which is, you know, up our earliest maybe listing, it's not even really a listing. What Ben Sira does is he writes this very lengthy poem as a tribute to the ancestors, where he starts from Adam and goes all the way through to I don't remember where he ends, but scholars look at that and they're going, okay, so he's quoting a lot from Genesis and Exodus, and oh, look here, he's quoting Isaiah, and so they look at that as a way of sort of defining the limits of what they understood as scripture. And that's really interesting, right? Because you know, some of the things that Ben Sira doesn't mention are like Daniel. In 180 BCE, he had no idea, right? So, which makes sense from a scholarly perspective. It wasn't written yet. But this is one of the things. We found a lot of copies of texts that appear in our Hebrew Bibles, and I'm usually pretty careful to say it that way. Parts of texts that appear in our Hebrew Bibles, because this question starts to get really complicated. Now, on the one hand, what does that mean? What is a text from the Hebrew Bible? Because there are other manuscripts in the Dead Sea Scrolls which retell stories from Genesis, from Exodus. There's a collection of manuscripts that has been labeled the Reworked Pentateuch, which is like it sounds. It's a copy of the Torah, but wildly different. Like it's dramatically different in many places. This is where the text talks about something called the wood and oil feast, which nobody had ever heard of before its discovery. So
What the hell is that?
right? We don't know. It's fun. So I don't know. You can think of, I'm sorry. I mean, if Brentley were here, he
Could
would
be a
probably say,
euphemism for something we don't know. I'm
yeah.
just kidding.
And if you want to feast on some wood,
Brentley.
sorry.
Isn't that Brentley thing?
Anyways, it probably wasn't that. But so is this? So what is this? Is the Reworked Pentateuch a biblical scroll or not? It's one of the really interesting things about the Reworked Pentateuch is that it looks like, to me, I think to some other scholars, this looks like one of the earliest attempts, movements, to actually writing out all 5 books of Moses in one manuscript, which is a big deal. Up until most of the manuscripts we have are individual copies of Genesis or Exodus or Leviticus. There's like literally 3 places in the entire collection of scrolls where we can see breaks between like Exodus and Leviticus, or like between Leviticus and Numbers. So we know that there's a couple of scrolls where at least 2 books were, on the same manuscript. But so Torahs, probably not actually a thing at this point in time, except for these so-called reworked Pentateuchs, which I think is really interesting, because that would mean that our earliest examples of the Torah look nothing like the Torah as we have it now. So on the one hand, this question of what's biblical versus non-biblical, I think is a really important one. And I think we need to rethink the way they thought about literature and about scripture at this period of time. And then that's the other side of this is, and this is what honestly why I started doing the video series in the first place, was because I got so fucking sick and tired of seeing everybody come on YouTube to talk about how much the Dead Sea Scrolls match our copies of the Hebrew Bible look exactly like, word for word, as one famous apologist once said. And this is just wrong. Like, on the one hand, you can find some fragments, some scrolls, which look remarkably like one of the versions of the Hebrew Bible that was in circulation at the time. Oh, right. There's more than one. There's one that we call the Masoretic text, which is sort of the standard Hebrew text that we've inherited. But then there are Hebrew copies of the text that underlies something that looks like the Septuagint, which, again, a really dramatically different version of the Bible in several places. And then we have copies of the Samaritan Pentateuch, which is
Right.
another version. So we have all this stuff. At this point, I think. Sorry, I lost my. So yes, the boundaries between scripture and non-scripture, and then yes, what version are you going to use? What version do you consider to be the Bible, right? And then within some of these versions, there's like really intriguing changes, differences. One of the more famous ones that I like to, there's a couple that I like to point to. One of these is the preservation of the original text of Deuteronomy 32, verses 8 to 9. Part of the Song of Moses, which says in most English translations, you'll read, when Elyon divided the, actually, shall I, let me,
Some
let
of
me
my
pull this
favorite
up, right?
scriptures.
Yes. Let me
Is that
just-
Deuteronomy 32 or is that
32, 8 to 9. When Elyon apportioned the nations an inheritance, when he divided the sons of Adam, he fixed the borders of the peoples according to the, this is how most English translations put it, according to the number of the sons of Israel. So Yahweh's portion is his people, Jacob his allotted heritage. Now, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, we found a copy of that, of the Song of Moses, Deuteronomy 32, where it says not he numbered them according to the sons of Israel, but they were numbered according to the sons of God. So basically, the picture painted in the original text was that the high God, El Elyon, was apportioning out in his inheritance, his holdings, to his children, these smaller, lesser deities, one of whom was Yahweh, who received Jacob from El Elyon. And this is in close keeping with perspectives of deity, with how ancient people understood gods to function. We see this in Hittite literature. We see this in Canaanite literature. We see this in Mesopotamian literature. The gods were a family. There was a high god. He had 70 children, and each one received a part of, like a territory, an allotment, a heritage. So they divided it up. This is in the Hebrew Bible too. Genesis chapter 10 lists 70 nations. These are what, and it's repeated in I don't remember. There's a couple of places in the Bible, also in early Jewish literature, where this number is repeated as this idea that there's 70 nations on earth.
right?
They each had their own deity, their own god, their own patron. Israel's was Yahweh.
Right.
So yeah, so that's, oh, and I want to mention one more. And this because Wes Huff famously went on Joe Rogan to talk about and mentioned that in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the great Isaiah scroll is word for word identical to the Masoretic text, which is bullshit. Now there are 22 copies of Isaiah in the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is also, I think, really interesting. The fact that they had so many copies of individual books. It's interesting. I think we don't know the answer to this. We don't know why, but it's interesting. So he's, the Great Isaiah Scroll is not word for word identical. And then it came back, well, I mean, it's most of the differences are small. Oh, really? Well, one of the big things in the Great Isaiah Scroll, the thing that I think most people are sleeping on in the Great Isaiah Scroll, is not actually a text thing. It's a scribal convention thing. So right in the middle, in column 27, at the end of chapter 33, at the bottom, the scribe has left 3 blank lines. And then this is also the end of a sheet. And then he started the next chapter 34 starts at the top of the next sheet, which has been stitched on. So this is I mean, you think that, well, yeah, sure, it's the end of a chapter, big deal. It is a big deal because this is not how he divides any of the chapters in his manuscript. This is not how anyone from this period of time made. If you don't know the individual chapters and verses, that's something that was added much later, right? So they didn't. There are paragraph breaks in some of the manuscripts. Sometimes you'll see a single line break to divide important sections. The only time you see like a big gap like that of 3 or 4 lines of text left empty in a manuscript is where you're dividing between compositions. So if you've decided this is a book, this is
Right.
and this is the end of it, but I still have more, I want to include another book on this, I'm going to put this division in there. So what this means is that the scribe of 1Q Isaiah A did not think he was writing the vision of Isaiah, at least not just the vision of Isaiah. He thought that's part of what he was writing, but then he's like, and then there's this other part. It's like this second Isaiah, let's call it, even though this wasn't written by Isaiah. And this is a theory that has been pushed by scholars. Almost all scholars recognize that Isaiah is a composite work, that the first half was written by Isaiah ben Amoz, the prophet of the 8th century, but then at a later period of time, a bunch of other stuff,
Right.
in
Like a school of Isaiah almost.
Yeah, something like that. Well, here we have a Dead Sea Scrolls which attests to this reality.
That's so
And
cool.
and beyond that, and I'll just say this, of those 22 copies of the book of Isaiah at Qumran, this is really interesting. We have 3 that contain all of Isaiah in fragmentary form, but we know we have a pretty good idea it was all there, just on the basis of what survives, right? All the rest of them, so that's all 17 or 18 that are left. I'm famously good at math, as you know.
Hey guys, y'all want to take a break? You want some coffee? It's the top
I do,
of the hour.
but let me finish. Let me finish this, and then we can go. Of all the rest of them, they contain either only the first half of Isaiah or the second half of Isaiah. That's it. So it looks like in the first century BC, in the first century CE, ancient people understood this. Isaiah is not a complete book written by Isaiah. That's I think that's amazing.
That's huge. That's huge because I think the assumption is that Isaiah is just Isaiah is Isaiah. And as you gave us the evidence, I can't explain it, but that makes it right. Physical evidence that concurs with I don't know, is it
what scholars have been saying? Yeah, it's cool. So,
I love that.
Yeah. Coffee time,
all right? Chris.
Coffee time. All right, we're gonna do. Yeah, when you see my little head pop in, it's just commercial time. We're gonna do the Pharaoh's Curse. They've been calling for it, so here we go. The Pharaoh's Curse. We'll be back in 3.
Mi burrito es tan bueno, it burns when I pee. Abraham had the crotch cooties and gave his sister wife to me. El ataco fue no bueno, it stings like a bee. They told me she was his sister, now I'm plagued between the knees. I've got the Pharaoh's curse, a case of penile plague. I've got the Pharaoh's curse, there's fire between my legs. Mi burrito está no bueno, a full bladder I fear. Abraham's lies and Sarai's touch have left me itching front to rear. Mi burrito está bueno. It burns when I pee. Abraham had the crotch cooties and gave his sister wife to me. I've got the Pharaoh's curse, a case of penal plague. I've got the Pharaoh's curse, there's fire between my legs. Mi burrito está no bueno, a full bladder I fear. Abraham's lies and Sarai's touch have left me itching front to rear. Mi burrito está no bueno, it burns when I pee. Abraham had the crotch cooties and gave his sister wife to me. I've got the Pharaoh's curse, a case of penal plague. I've got the Pharaoh's curse, there's fire between my legs. I've got the Pharaoh's curse, a case of penal plague. I've got the Pharaoh's curse, there's fire between my legs.
Back in three, and we are back. Now, I just want to say something before I go off the screen. Sam, I don't know what's going on, man. We're not as angry right now about these scrolls that you feel we need to be. I blocked you, and then I was like, man, I like Sam. Normally, I unblocked you, and then you come back in and you start your shit again. I'm not telling you what to say. You can just go say it somewhere the fuck else. I'm getting sick of you attacking other people in my chat just because we're not as pissed off about these scrolls as you think we should be. So I'm done. One more fucking word out of you and you're gone, and I am not unbanning you. So you can either go the fuck away now, say something stupid, and you can go away. Apologies, Dr. Kipp. I'm sorry. I've just had a disruptor shitting in my chat for the last hour, and I'm just tired of it. So you guys carry on with your wonderful show, and
On that note,
I will. Yeah, I'll go back to doing what I'm doing. Thank you, guys.
okay. So we've got a few more questions, but if I could, hopefully, if I can, I'm going to try to exercise my brain, which is really difficult for me because words are hard. So if I could kind of surmise some of what you said, is there's a misconception about the source material that it all kind of says the same stuff, which is untrue. And you gave some evidence of, for instance, Deuteronomy 32, where Elohim at the top of the scripture starts out, and he's the one who's dividing the nations. And it eventually, according to some of the texts, he's the one who gives himself a piece of the portion, which makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
Right. Why would Elion?
You don't give yourself an inheritance.
God wouldn't give himself an inheritance. Now maybe I would give myself.
Yeah, it just so.
But that's not what an inheritance is.
No, it's not. And this is there's a linguistic issue here. And this is something too, before the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, this is something that scholars recognize, because the Greek translation is a little different. It says that it uses the word angelos, angels, right? For sons, where it says the sons of Israel or the sons of God. And scholars looked at that and already kind of figured, well, this is probably sons of God, because that's commonly how the Septuagint translates this term. They translate it with angelos. So, the reason, and I think this is cool too, right? Like this is a motivated alteration of the text. The change was made because I think most scholars think at some point someone was uncomfortable with this idea that Yahweh was descended from the high god El and received an inheritance from him. That
subordinate, basically.
Yeah. in other words, people, someone was uncomfortable with the fact that, oh, shocker, Israelite religion was a Canaanite religion. It's right.
Who
Uh,
thunk it?
who would have thunk it? But I think that's some of that's some of the coolest shit too, as far as I'm concerned. When I read the Bible, is to see, and yeah, you do see this you see this all over the place in the Dead Sea Scrolls. They're doing their own things. They're riffing on texts to make new theologies or to promote their theologies or their ideologies. So it looks a little bit different, but some of the coolest shit that you see in the Bible is the stuff that's not on the face of it apparent.
Right.
The
Yeah.
stuff you have to kind of dig through to see, because this is a very heavily edited collection of texts. It's been stitched together from all sorts of different source material over the course of hundreds of years. So in many places, in many respects, the texts aren't even saying the same thing. They're talking against each other.
Yeah.
No, sorry. I kind of bit my tongue there when I was talking.
It fit. You were talking against yourself, and the texts are talking against each other. It's a metaphor for life, my man.
Yeah. So I think I'm actually, so I'm like working on a video script right now. I'm going to be doing something with Apologia here, and excuse me, and like this is one of the things that comes up in this. We're responding to a video by a guy named Joel Kramer, who fashions himself as an archaeologist. He's not really, but he's doing this video all about how the family of David, the house of David, the lineage of David, survived the exile all the way up to Jesus. But one of the things in the text, when you look at the Hebrew Bible text, is while most people were committed to this idea of the everlasting throne of David, that David would always have a descendant on the throne in Jerusalem. It's this famous promise in 2 Samuel chapter 7. In later times, it gets picked up on as sort of a messianic expectation that the Messiah, when he comes to save us from the Romans, he's going to be a descendant of David. He's going to reestablish the kingdom. Lots of people were very excited about this. You can see this in the Hebrew Bible. This is a prominent message, but importantly, not everyone was. And we actually have texts in the Hebrew Bible. Jeremiah talks about how the house of David is coming to an end. There will be no descendants left. There will be no one to sit on the throne of David anymore, because the house of David has come to an end. Not everybody was on the same all the time. In the book, I have a chapter in there. The largest chapter in there is about David, actually, and I go into some of these texts which show, even in like early periods of time, when the people in Judah still had kings, not everybody was happy about it. People, believe it or not, didn't like the fact that there was a king. There are these sort of romantic recollections of the time before there was a king ruling in Jerusalem,
Like
or
idealized.
yeah, you know, the tribal league, the 12 tribes
Right.
of Israel, the, you know, and this actually looks like it reflects some sort of an historical reality. One of the things that I see in some of these texts is this it's a really interesting sort of narrative, this promotion of this idea that part of what makes us Israel is the fact that we've walked away from the cities into the highlands, into these small villages where we are self-determined and independent, and fuck all those guys. And this looks like it could reflect something that's actually happening at the end of the Bronze Age and the beginning of the Iron Age, and 1100,000 BCE. One of the things that we see is this massive explosion of population in the highlands. All these new little villages start popping up and dotting the landscape, right? They are virtually indistinguishable in terms of their material culture, the pottery, the foodstuffs that are left, the things that archaeologists look at to try and identify people who are living there. They're indistinguishable from what everybody else is doing in Canaan. But it's interesting that you've got this large movement of people into the country, into the hills, away from the cities. And you see some of that reflected in the text, right? Even in just the first 11 chapters of Genesis. And this isn't my own. This is stuff that scholars have been looking at. Ronald Hendel has talked about this. David Carr has talked about this. Joshua Bowen, my good friend, in his Atheist Handbook of the Bible, talks about this. Very good book. The Garden of Eden in Genesis chapter 2 and 3 is like, this isn't this isn't the virgin wilderness, right? As we often tend to think about this, it's an urban landscaped garden.
There's a difference between the first story and the second. The first one's almost like the whole earth has fruit, seeds, whatever, but then the garden is a garden. Yeah,
and it's a constructed garden.
Yeah,
probably like the hanging gardens of Babylon, something like that, right?
Yeah, that's what I kind of was wondering too. Okay, exactly. So you think that as well. Cool. Okay.
It's an urban space. It's part of the city. But this is the first thing that happens is that they are kicked out of the garden. They have to leave the garden, this urban landscape, into the wilderness. Cain is the first man to build a city, and also the first man to murder another human being.
Right.
You see the story of the Tower of Babel, is kind of like a reversal of this, where people are gathering together to build a city and a tower, and God has to disperse them. Abraham he leaves the city of Ur and spends the rest of his days wandering around in the Sumerian and the Judean highlands. So this is a theme, right? And it's programmatic. I think it's like saying the best way of life is when you're a country folk living out on the land, looking after yourself.
Right.
There's this ethos that permeates a lot of these texts.
Right, like almost like the shepherds versus like the city folk kind of farmers, those who roam and kind of stick themselves, versus like where everybody's gathered, and their cities. I mean, back then a little bit different, but where they grew fruit and gathered and whatnot, which you would kind of think a farm, isn't that more of what they were, cities?
So this is something that I think we know famously that and one of the identifiers for distinguishing properly Israelite culture from the rest of broader Canaan in this point of time is by the pretty surprising absence of pig bones. They didn't eat pork. They didn't use pork byproducts at all. This we understand as a religious prescription. The book of Leviticus, the book of Deuteronomy talk about not abstaining from pork products, right? I think this has less to do with religion in the earliest stage of time, because one of the great things about pork is that you don't need a lot of space to raise pigs. They're an animal that you can keep in the city and can raise. You can't do that with cows or sheep or goats.
Okay.
So the abstinence of from pork, I think, in the earliest stages, less so about, well, it's dirty, God doesn't want us to do this, and more about, fuck those guys in the city.
I want to be different.
Yeah, we're not eating their dirty shit. It's all about cows and goats for us. So
I mean, again, coming from a religion who truly wants to do everything just to be controversial, just to be different, I can see how that is a theme. And some people said, okay, we just, whatever it is that they do, we're not going to do that.
Yeah, bunch of obstinate country folk.
Okay, so I don't want my audience to kill me. There's been like a ton of questions coming through and I'm trying to write them down. So let me get the first one. Austin Sims says, can you ask Dr. Kipp if we have any sort of good estimate how many different versions of the Bible there are? Can we put a minimum number on it? Yeah.
So versions, I would, so these aren't, I'm interpreting this as not translations.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. Yeah.
So I think I understand that as actual different types of the same texts that were in circulation in antiquity. I've mentioned a couple. Scholars identify the Masoretic text, the Septuagint, and the Samaritan Pentateuch as independent versions in antiquity of the Bible. There were certainly more. And we know this because of a number of the copies of the texts in the Dead Sea Scrolls don't align with any of those. They all look a little different in various ways. We know. So I'll say we know at least 3, and we know there were more. I think you could add another one that I identified earlier, the so-called reworked Pentateuch, as properly a version. So that's 4. And then the question at this point too is, and this is where things get fuzzy. One of the more famous manuscripts from the Dead Sea Scrolls is called the Temple Scroll, and it's the largest of the Dead Sea Scrolls manuscripts. It's called the Temple Scroll because most of the last part of it is an elaborate description of the cosmic celestial temple that would the temple of the celestial temple of Yahweh in the last days. Its dimensions and what it looked like and its interiors, all that stuff, right? But the rest of the manuscript, most of the manuscript, is actually a rewriting of the Torah, mostly Deuteronomy, and but again, wildly different. And the really cool thing about the Temple Scroll is, so in antiquity, when you wanted to make sure people read your stuff, when you wanted to make sure people understood that what you had to say was very important, you would write in the name of someone more recognizable, more known than yourself. Okay. So, for example, the book of Deuteronomy scholars are agreed was not written by Moses. None of the books were written by Moses. No, he didn't write it. But the writer of the book of Deuteronomy was so serious about what he wrote that he decided that he was going to write it in, the hand of Moses. Like this is Moses's book. This is his speech.
Right.
So it provides this layer of authority. It's like a vouchsafe for the quality of the contents of this book. So the Temple Scroll does one better, and this is a manuscript that purports not, just to be the words of Moses. It's literally the word of God. Yahweh is the writer of the Temple Scroll. I, Yahweh, am telling you.
I see.
So, and you could see this in these places, right, in the book of Deuteronomy, where the scribe has done nothing more than just replace the pronouns and the identity of the speaker from Moses to Yahweh. Like it's just,
just like that.
Just like that. So, but then what is that? Is that a version? I don't know. In manner of speaking. So yeah.
So approximately, I think, what did you say, like half a dozen ish, maybe, like depending on how you wanted to.
So I'll say at least 4.
At least 4.
At least 4, but we know there were more.
Interesting. Yeah, unfortunately, we'll what's been lost to time. That just God, it breaks my heart to think of all that was lost, like when they first found them and weren't they burning them for fire or something, like they didn't know.
Well, so we're told stories. One of the things that one of the stories we're told, the first scrolls were found by Tamira Bedouin shepherds in the desert, and we're told that they put them in a saddlebag and hung them on a tent pole, just in their encampment there for a few months. And then we're told that when they got around to trying to sell them, they went to a cobbler because they thought they'd make good shoes. So now, we need to be cautious with some of these stories because this is the 1950s, right? The late 40s, the early 1950s. And one of the things that European scholars, European people like to do back then was to think that they were saving humanity, that they were rescuing they were the white saviors, right? So how many of these are legitimate stories, or how many of these are
for that.
white European tropes about dumb Arabs who don't know what the fuck they're doing? And this is one of the reasons we think this too, is because this is a trope. Another collection of manuscripts that was discovered close to the same time as the Nag Hammadi library in Egypt, and you read the same sorts of stories. This is the one that the discoverer was this dumb Egyptian guy who was so stupid he took the books and thought, oh, these will make great fire kindling. I'll just throw them in the fire, right? So yeah, it took the enlightened European scholarly types to come on and go, oh, you can't do that. These are valuable. Yeah. So take some of these stories with a grain of salt.
Thank you for that.
You want to take a couple of minutes for a break, get you some more coffee, and then we'll get out the last half hour of the day.
Will do.
Awesome. I'm going to do the pup. Let's do the pup. Let's throw some Ollie at people. People love Ollie.
Fine again. Yes, sir. Very disturbing, I know.
Fetch me Father Flanagan.
Your Highness.
You are in the presence of His Holiness, the Puppius Maximus, guardian of the sacred fire hydrant, defender of the holy tennis ball, and eater of the golden kibble, Pup Oliver Poopsalot the Fifth.
Your popedom. I heard you have a bone to pick with me.
Condoms, Father Flanagan?
No, thank you. I've got plenty.
That's what I mean. Why are you selling condoms?
Oh, you mean our Pharaoh Sombrero line of condoms? Understood.
You know how we feel about those around here.
Well, they're not to be used by the Catholics, of course.
Not for Catholics?
No, they're part of our Sinner Gonna Sin lack of faith outreach program.
A sinner gonna what?
It's like getting the tithe, but from the heretics and the heathens and the atheists.
Oh, well, when you put it like that,
But, Your Highness, this will reflect very poorly on the church.
true. You know what this means, Flanagan?
Warning label, a warning label on the box, not for Catholics in big letters.
Too subtle.
Instant purgatory if used by Catholics.
I like it. Divine branding.
Excellent, your popedom. Will there be anything else?
That will be all. You may leave.
And here we are. We are back for the final half hour. Dr. Kipp and Ryan. Ryan's been doing a fantastic job of interviewing Dr. Kipp. Great questions. And I've been doing a wonderful job, if I do say so myself, of just sitting here watching.
Hard work, Chris.
Just sit here and watch. I know.
Whew.
I may have to take a break from watching after all
Take
this.
a breather, Chris. Don't hurt
Yeah,
yourself,
I
man.
will.
You
I
got
will.
dogs
I'm
to
gonna lay
look
down.
after.
We'll lay down. With my
Go
dogs.
take a nap.
All right, guys. We'll see you in a bit. Get after it. Thank you.
Okay, I want to ask you a fun question that we got from the audience. What is some of your favorite bands? I think they asked for 3 specifically, if I remember.
Bands?
But yeah,
Yeah. So I love Amorphous is a Finnish. They used to be a death metal band. They're not really doing a lot of that kind of stuff anymore. They're pretty good. I like a Norwegian band called Kvelertak. I love Gojira. Famous. They became famous for performing us at the Olympics in Paris. But that was I've been listening to them for a lot longer than that. I love Iron Maiden. I've taken my kids to Iron Maiden concerts. There's a bunch. I still listen to this really old Christian metal band called Trouble. They were one of the early Christian heavy metal bands, but a lot of people haven't heard about them because they loved Jesus, but they also loved sex and drugs as part of the rock and roll thing. So they didn't get quite the airplay and the promotion that occurred in Christian circles. So, but they're pretty badass. So yeah, I mean that's a few. Someone asked about Sloan. Yeah, they're okay. Trooper, yeah, Trooper's good. So I'm on a Ghost kick right now too, because the album came out a few months ago, and that's kind of what I do when there's new shit. It hits my Unleash the Archers is pretty phenomenal. That's a Canadian band. They slay. So yeah.
there you go, guys. Now go look them up if you've never heard of them, because I've only heard of a few of those. I have to be honest. I'm not a big like rock and roll kind of fan. I enjoy good, if it's good music, I enjoy good music. So I don't say I won't listen to it, but I don't necessarily just tune into that kind of music.
I feel like I've gotten more like that as I've gotten older. You know, it took some time to catch on to some of the stuff my kids were listening to. You know, not to be the grumpy old man yelling at clouds, but
right, yeah. I do not want to be that. And I think with I mean, not that this is my job per se, but you know, with what you do online and your studies, it's kind of important that you stay relevant, you stay current, you know.
Well.
You are, Dr. Kipp. Don't even no,
Sure.
don't try it. Don't try it.
I get made fun of constantly for being, I'm not a boomer, but I have been told by my friends that I have boomer tendencies.
Oh, some of that boomer energy. Well, you know.
Boomer energy. Yeah.
Okay, now Lil of all trades, I don't know why, but she said everybody wants to know if you eat sticks. I don't know if this is an inside joke.
No, this was Ember's stream yesterday.
Okay.
So Lil of all trades, was it? It was probably 2 months ago. She got a new puppy, and she posted something in the chat, asked a question, or I don't remember exactly what, but then she wanted to know if it would be okay, if I would be okay if I thought it was cool, or if I thought she should name her new dog Dr. Kipp. And I was like,
oh
yeah. She's a girl too, by the way, the dog.
That's even better.
Female, yeah. An adorable little black lab. But yeah, so she was on Amber's stream yesterday, and there's a clip. Maya sent me the clip, I think. But there's a clip of her saying something to the effect of like there's so many times she catches Dr. Kipp eating sticks.
Well, you know, they say that if you eat things like that, you must be missing something from your diet.
I just got to be me, guys. I just got to do it. My dog
wood festival, whatever it was.
Oh yeah, that's it. The Wood and Oil Festival.
Wood and oil. You just eating sticks.
My dog, Dagon, the Abomination of the Philistines, famously eats a lot of sticks.
Does he really?
Oh God. So he every time we walk, and I mountain bike with him too, just to, well, it's fun. But because I never go fast enough. He's a Belgian Malinois, and he's just a tank full of constant energy.
Okay.
So he's always running his ass off everywhere, and when I'm walking, especially, I'm moving too slow, or if I stop when I'm on my bike, he will jump at trees and grab branches and pull them off, and he'll rip trees out of the ground. He'll start just diving into deadfall and ripping it apart. It's just, yeah. We have to dig out some pretty big chunks of wood in his teeth.
Oh no, like up in his gums and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, well, he must not be that bothered if he keeps doing it. Just saying.
Yeah, he was pretty grumpy for like it was like a week. I was like, wow, he is not happy with other dogs and kids and things like that. I'm like, something is a little off. And yeah, sure enough, we found a chunk of wood in his, and it started to smell a little bit too. So yeah, we really have to. So I mean, that's a thing now, is just we have to very closely keep our eyes open. So
yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, when I take
Uh,
pickles out for walks and stuff, I gotta check her for ticks and all that. So now you just have
yeah.
an extra little step of making sure there's
Just
no, I know that we use toothpicks like to pick stuff out of our teeth, but I think that Dagons may be doing it the wrong way. Just a little education there on how to take care of
yeah, there's better ways of getting roughage into your diet.
right.
And
Okay, so another question is, who asked this? I don't remember who this was. If you could ask why books like Proverbs got different chapters, verses in the Septuagint than from the Hebrew Bible, please.
hmm.
And I don't know about it.
That is, yeah. So that's, yeah, now, one of the reasons for this and I believe this is possibly the case for Proverbs, certainly a lot of the versification in the Psalms differs pretty consistently between the Septuagint and the Masoretic text. And one of the reasons for that is because the Septuagint added a bunch of superscriptions to the Psalms, meaning that there were anonymous Psalms, and they said this is actually written for or by, probably for David. So they added that stuff, right? I think something like that is taking place in Proverbs. So
Okay.
it's, but and this is the difficult thing here is that like this is the versification, the assignment of chapter and verse divisions within manuscripts came quite a bit later, right? So and that's usually later than my focus, so I really don't know. But I think it's some of this is yeah. I'm not sure, but superscriptions probably has something to do with it. I'll say one of the big differences that you see between the Septuagint and the Masoretic text is in the book of Jeremiah, where I did a lot of my PhD work. It's a super interesting book, not just for the perspective that I think it gives some really interesting real-time snapshots into what's happening in Jerusalem during this period when the Babylonians are invading, when they're threatening the city, but also because there's a ton of textual activity going on in there. We have famously a dramatically different version of Jeremiah in the Septuagint. It's 13% shorter than the Masoretic text version. It has, the Masoretic text version is later. I think that is established that it's a later version. It's expanded. It's rearranged the material, so entire chunks of text have been moved around, and we have another of the really interesting things is that like one of the things that the Masoretic text does is in some of Jeremiah's oracles where he's talking about the nations coming and God's going to send the nations to destroy Jerusalem. They're going to be the instrument of his wrath. That's one of the themes. The Septuagint will say that, and the Masoretic text will just add, my slave Nebuchadnezzar is coming.
Oh.
So things like that. And this activity, this editorial activity is occurring for a long time. Like there's within the manuscripts of the Dead Sea Scrolls, there's evidence that even in the 2nd century BCE, people were still, adding, redacting, changing, working through the texts.
It's kind of unbelievable, especially since I always bring it back to my religion, but it was just, it was impounded into my head that everything has stayed the same. You could not change a thing, not a dot, not a, what is it? Tittle. Yeah. None of that can change. And I just had always thought that the entirety of my life until recently. And, truly mind-blowing that the differences are, I guess basically I had no idea how Judaism was such a varied belief system.
Yeah.
I just had,
Yeah.
monolith.
Yeah,
It's just how it was driven into my head. And it's just not the case whatsoever. And I just find that so fascinating because, they all had different opinions and beliefs and positions on Yahweh and maybe even other gods as well. We just don't have preserved.
And people were, and that's the thing too, right? Like, I don't think, I mean, even though I often say that, I think I say this in the introduction to my book, that the, when you read the Bible, you have to get into this mindset that the people in antiquity were just, they thought differently than you and I did. And that's true. But by the same token, people are people, and we do a lot of the same things the same way. And to that end, I think that the ancient world, ancient Palestine, was very much like our world in this respect, that I imagine the vast majority of people just didn't care enough about, like, they were just trying to live their lives, most people, right? And get on. And in order to get on, you go through the motions of whatever religious observance you have adopted. I think there were tons of people who just didn't take this stuff all that seriously. We've got this picture, and this is real. Like, at the time, there was this movement that was very much politically motivated to, we hate the Romans and we really wish they would go away and leave us alone. And these were tied to religious narratives. But by the same token, there were probably also a lot of people who were like, well, I don't know. Like, I mean, the Romans it's like Life of Brian, right? What have the Romans ever done for us? Well, they gave us roads, and they've brought peace to the empire. They have, in many respects, I think a lot of people were like, you know what? It's not that bad. It's better than pissing them off. Incorporating some of these other religious views, like some of the Hellenistic religious philosophical ideas into our own traditions. That's kind of cool. But Dionysus seems like a neat guy. Why don't we just start? We can do that and Yahweh at the same time. Why not?
Why not?
I think there were lots of people like that.
I tend to agree with you. I don't think that they were as sticklers as we consider them to be. Okay, there's a $5 super chat, but before I ask you that, Deviant Outcast asks, can you address how the scrolls are being used to spread evangelical extremism?
So and I think this happens mostly by way of Christian Zionism. When I've written on the history of, like, the modern discovery, I've published stuff on the modern discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is another one of the things that is more within my keener levels of interest. One of the things that I'm doing in my series, The Dead Sea Scrolls Unapologetically, is trying to talk about the scrolls, introduce the scrolls as a body of literature, as a religious cultural phenomenon, but then also within the story of their discovery. Because, one of the reasons for this is because of how much the Dead Sea Scrolls have been tied to narratives about the state of Israel. So the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1947, right close to the time of the end of the British Mandate for Palestine.
Yeah.
At which point, the state of Israel declared statehood. And so there's this story about Eliezer Sukenik, who was an archaeologist at the Hebrew University and one of the first people to see or to read the Dead Sea Scrolls. But there's this famous story that gets circulated about how he had acquired the first copies of these for himself. He purchased some for the Hebrew University, you know, and it was this dangerous enterprise because of the tensions in the area at the time. You had to go through military checkpoints. You know, there was, you never know when somebody might shoot or blow something up. So you know, it was, and he gets them back to his place, his home on Mount Scopus, and this was the 29th of November, 1947. And he says in his journal that he was reading the Chodai, one of the copies of the Dead Sea Scrolls, at the same time that his son was in the other room listening to the radio broadcast of the UN vote on the independence of the state of Israel. And he makes this statement that this moment of incredible cultural significance, one religious, one, you know, it was combined in my home together. You know, there's this romanticization of the scrolls that gets tied directly to the founding of the state of Israel and has been promoted by the state in many respects to marginalize outsiders, to marginalize Palestinians. This is part of the narrative, and I think evangelical Christians have been very guilty of promoting this narrative on this basis. So, just as you know, one of the things, did you know that most of the scrolls were discovered in the state of Jordan? You know, that's where they were found and housed for 20 years almost. Well, maybe no, not quite. Yeah, no, 20 years. In fact, the fifth installment of the publication, the official publication of the Dead Sea Scrolls, was titled "Discoveries in the Judean Desert of Jordan."
Oh wow!
And they, after the 6-Day War in 1967, Israel basically just took it all back, you know, for themselves. And legitimate, they, you know, it's legitimate this sort of conquest on the base. Well, they're Jewish texts, right?
Right.
Of course, they belong to us.
Right.
I don't mean to interrupt, but we're getting near the end of the thing, you know, and we still have that one question from the super chat.
Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, I will do that. Hold on, let me scroll. Okay, so Hank Oflamio says, Dr. Kipp, why do atheists only focus on debunking Yahweh and the God of classical theism? They are different, but use them to avoid polytheism question.
Well, they debunk Yahweh and the God of classical theism in terms of a monotheistic, but they're different. But they use them to avoid polytheism questions. I mean, I think I would say, if I'm understanding the question correctly, I would say the reason for that is because the monotheistic faith, Christianity, and I guess Judaism.
If I could I just hedge that we may not actually do that. He's making claims that we run away from polytheistic stuff, but we don't. I just want to catch on to what's going on. Yeah.
I wasn't sure
exactly why do we run away from the poly? Yeah. Why do we run away from the poly arguments?
Polytheism? Well, I mean, I can't answer that question in some respects because I don't think I'm not actually. Maybe I'm an atheist. I don't know, it's not something. When my father asked me this question, I used to tell him I don't think it's an interesting question, and I stopped thinking about it a long time ago. So but yeah, I mean, I guess I don't think you can just lump everyone into the same group or paint them all with the same brush. I mean, there's certainly plenty of people out there who are drawing tons of attention to the polytheistic roots of the Hebrew Bible. I mean, look at Rian. Right. Sorry, I keep mispronouncing it, don't I? But everybody's kind of doing their own thing, and not everybody does it the same way. So, and I don't think anybody's afraid of this sort of thing or of avoiding this kind of stuff either. But I also would say I think a lot of people misunderstand it. So.
True enough. Well, I'm gonna catch up and read our super chats for the day real quick, and then we'll wrap it up, guys. I appreciate you both. Thank you all. It's been fantastic. I really enjoyed just kind of sitting here slacking. Let's see what we've got. I think we may have missed a super chat. Secular Feelingness says, "How does Moses make his coffee? He brews it."
Oh yes, I
$2.
mentioned that one. Sorry.
Yes, and Hank, I'll read this again. Hank Aflamel says, "Dr. Kipp, why do atheists only focus on debunking Yahweh? That's a fallacy. We don't only focus on debunking Yahweh. He's already in that point made a fallacy about atheists and the God of classical theism. They are different, but use them to avoid polytheism questions. We don't do that either. His entire question is made up of straw men about atheists. It's just nonsense. He's kind of a every now and then antagonist in the chat. Troll, I think, is the word you want to look for. Troll. But yeah, if you read the question again, take your time, read it all you want. And that's what he's doing. He's making claims about atheists that are not true and then asking you to defend those claims.
I kind of feel like in Deuteronomy 33, we pretty much proved how there's polytheism. Yes, there is polytheism in the Bible. So that
in this person's case, I believe this person is talking about, why do you go against the God of Abraham and not against the Greek gods, the Aztec gods? Why are you not wasting your time with the Aztec gods? And the reason why is because the Aztec gods people are not shoving their God down our throat right now.
Yeah, it's a social cultural question, right? Like this is the world in which we inhabit, and most of us too came out of forms of Christianity. Excuse me. I think it just has to do with the fact that we exist and we react to the world in which we live. I know you get this a lot. I even get this on my channel from time to time. Why don't you do this? Why don't you focus on Islam? Oh fuck! I don't know anything about it. Right? Like I try to stick to what I know. I know that's weird, and there's weird. lots of people who don't. There's lots of people out there who are very fond of talking about everything and pretending to know everything, but I'm just not one of those.
Not one of those.
And thank goodness, I love when I hear a scholar say, I'm not sure how to answer that, or I don't know the answer, because you know what? I that to me will make me trust you a bit more, that you'll be honest, so that I know when I need to maybe take precaution or do research myself. So I commend that.
Right. Very much. You know what, guys? I appreciate you both. Thank you, Dr. Kipp, for joining us. Thank you, Ryan, for taking the helm. I think she did wonderful. There you go.
I only have like 20 more questions about Asher, but it's good.
Wow.
That just means I'm going to have to force Dr. Kipp to.
We'll just have to have him back.
He's going to have to let me interrogate him some more.
I know. I could use the break. Maybe we'll schedule a weekly break for Chris. Interview with Dr. Kipp.
Dr. Kipp.
You guys have a great day. I appreciate you both very much. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. We will see you tomorrow for Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. Today
is Thursday.
Wow, tomorrow's Friday. Tomorrow we're going to, wait. I got to do something before we go. I'm sorry, I got to do this. Ryan, what are we talking about on the show tomorrow?
Oh, snap. That's right, because tomorrow is our sci-fry.
Sci-fry. So if you haven't done any of the Firefly, then we can go ahead and talk Battlestar Galactica.
Okay, sorry, man.
No, that's fine. We don't mind at all.
Is tomorrow PSG?
Yep,
Apparently it
tomorrow
is.
morning.
Oh God, original or the good one.
Both.
Oh,
We'll talk about it. That's what we're, different people have different opinions. I like them both.
that
Well,
was,
yeah, it's a nostalgic like of the original.
I 100%. That's where I'm at too. But honestly, when the new series aired and I watched it, that was that was the that was kind of the standard for sci-fi for me.
Yeah, for a while. It's good shit, wasn't it? Oh, it's good stuff. And that's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. So you guys have a great day. We will see you tomorrow. Thank you all. Send safely, my friends. Take care.
Got a house that smells like old cheese and shame. Father Flanagan's flesh candles change the game. Goat-scented thrills for your soul's delight. Light it up, baby, make your room right. When you've sinned and need to atone, light a candle and avoid the stone. Smell the goat in a holy zone. Father Flanagan, here to set the tone. Confession booth, busy, no need to stress. Light a candle and forget your mess. Gross odors vanish like sins in the wind. With each wick, guess who's your new best friend? When you've sinned and need to atone, light a candle and avoid the stone. Smell the goat in a holy zone. Father Flanagan, here to set the tone. Lambs and calves may have their day, but goat's the scent that leads the way. Clean your slate with a sniff so pure. Father Flanagan's got the cure. Turn your home into a saintly space. With every whiff, find redeeming grace. From your living room to the kitchen sink, light the goat candle, don't even think.
Next up in the bark bank, a clergyman with a holy hustle and maybe a few unholy loopholes.